Okie doke, here we go. So hopefully we'll be popping up here soon. And let me just get myself all set it here. We're up and running. There we go. All righty. So welcome back. So this is like our take two of streaming here. The broadcasting fairies have been a little challenging this morning. So thank you for your patience. Let's get going. So the topic today is for gifts for knitters. And so one of the challenges, I realize that we're in the middle of holiday season. So no matter what you celebrate, I guess it's still one more day till the solstice. So, but no matter what you celebrate, there's always ends up being those last minute gifts, or, maybe it's something you actually want for yourself. So, either way, hopefully this will give you some ideas. So whether there's a knitter in your life and you're not really sure what maybe they could use, what kind of tools they could use, or maybe you want to learn to knit and you're not sure what you're going to need. So I've pulled a bunch of my stuff out of my personal knitting toolbox to hopefully give you some ideas about what might be a good place to start. So anyhow, I'm going to keep my eye on my commentary here just in case that I need to switch and double check things. So I want to share with you. So this is my current knitting project. This is the Moibus, I'm sure I mispronounced that, but the Moibus scarf. It's not a scarf, it's a cowl. There we go, it's a cowl. And this is from knitty.com. And knitty.com, just as it sounds, KNITTY.com. And any rate, it's an online knitting magazine that has all kinds of designs. And so I wanted to give a shout out to the Moibus cowl from Knitty, because it's a really fun design. And one of the fun things about it, if you're a knitter, is that it's actually reversible. So it has a provisional cast on. So this is actually a live yarn. And it's a provisional cast on. And so eventually it has a half twist and it will be seamed together to go around my very large head. But so I still have quite a few rows to go in order to make it large enough for myself. But it's really fun because I've never done reversible cables before. And kind of the secret to this, just FYI, in case you're interested, is it's actually a 1x1 rib. So you knit and purl alternately all throughout the project. And that's how it's reversible. And then, of course, big old cables. I love cables. I just think they're so much fun. So the real star of the show here is the fabulous, fabulous Takumi Pro bamboo needles. Now, you notice how I'm twirling this in my fingers. So when I had the chance to show these off to yarn store owners at the Houston International Quilt Market, this is what really made everybody's jaws drop, right? Because they're used to seeing bamboo. And we all know that Clover Takumi needles are just amazing quality. I'm actually going to put this on a different close-up so you can see this a little closer. So on my little close-up, you can see here, we have our little needle. But notice how if I rotate it, I'm going to actually, let's see, turn down my exposure just a little bit. But it actually has a swivel. This is what really made everyone's jaws drop, is there's actually a swivel in it. And that's pretty awesome. So the cable is really thin. It's very thin. It's much more flexible. So you don't have to, what we normally do, now I'm going to be explaining some things in case you're not a knitter or if you're a beginning knitter. So I don't want to assume that you know everything I'm talking about. But what we used to do oftentimes, so here's kind of a more traditional old school circular needle. These are called circular needles. And see how much wider this cord is compared to the Takumi Pros. So this cord's a little wider, it's a little stiffer. And so traditionally what we would do is we would actually drop those in a bowl of really hot water to help soften them up before we use them. So we could straighten them out a little bit and soften them up. But the cord for the Takumi Pros is already, it's thinner, it's softer. But again, what's really, truly awesome is the fact that there's a swivel. And so your cables just don't get, your cords don't get all kinked up. They don't get all kinked up when you're knitting. They stay beautifully organized because there's that swivel. So I just kind of want to show them off a little bit. Another thing to show off is just the fact that these have actually been twice polished. So some of my friends who are really fast knitters, I'm probably, somewhere in the middle. I'm basically an intermediate knitter. I knit and I knit pretty well, but it's not anything that is going to, win me any awards. So it's not my main focus in life. But here with the Takumi Pros, they're actually twice polished. So they go through an extra polishing process that makes them really slick for bamboos compared to, we already love the Takumis that Clover has produced in the past, but this just takes it to a whole new level with a whole additional polishing process, and they're really sharp for bamboos. So those are pretty much, friends of mine like, well, I like them a little sharper, I like them a little smoother. This definitely takes care of both of them. And even the logo is laser incised. You cannot feel it. It's perfectly smooth. So really, really love these. So these are really the star of the show for my toolbox. They're pretty new, so it's been really awesome switching them out with my other needles. Not that I don't love them too, but again, I just am in love, especially with the swivel. That just to me is a pretty amazing thing. So anyhow, other tools that I'm using for this project and just in general is everyone who knits is going to need a knitting counter. Now you may be thinking, well, if you're already knitting, you already know that this is nothing new, right? This is nothing new to have a knitting counter. But this is the new universal knitting counter, and this is brand new. And see how this has a loop. So instead of just having to slide this up on your needle and then onto, I was told that these are really meant only for straight needles, but I will tell you that most knitters I know, we use them for straight needles and circular needles, but you're limited because when you have to insert a traditional counter, there's only so many sizes of needles you can use, right? If the needle is too wide, you can't slide the counter on there. But with this, it has a loop. So this loop, which of course does also have a little swivel on it so it doesn't get hung up, this can go on up to a size 15 needle. So you can use a big old needle. Let's see, do I have a size 15 Takumi here? Let's see. Yes, lo and behold, this is a size 15. So this is the little universal knitting counter. And so you can see, let's see, just lighten that up just a little bit. So here's our little universal knitting counter. So again, what's really great is that, again, it'll go on even a big needle. I have a project I need a bunch of these for, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So I need to unwrap them anyway. But here's that size 15 needle. This is a big old needle. And see, it just slides on there, no problem at all. Size 15 needle. Okay, so pretty awesome. In fact, actually, there's room to spare. So I'm going to say it'll go up higher than a 15. But I think they're being safe. And of course, the 15 has the awesome swivel too, and those really nice points. So this is our universal knitting counter. Now, again, one of the reasons I'm really excited about this is that sometimes you have a project. Now, I'm not going to embarrass myself by admitting when I actually started to knit this particular project. It was a long time ago, but hey, it'll get done eventually, right? So I know according to my universal knitting counter, I'm on row 126, but I finally got my extra knitting counters. So I needed a couple for other projects. So I now have enough. I'm really excited because with a project like this, you have every single one of these, again, especially if you're a little newer to knitting, you may not be aware of this, or if you're, again, looking for items for your knitting friends and you're not sure why they would need more than one of these. Here's why. So, first of all, so they do make knitting counters that are separate that you can push a button and things to keep track of your rows. And they even make apps for your phone. But I like to have mine securely fastened to my project because sometimes projects take many, many years to actually get accomplished. Maybe that's only me, but some of us are just that way. So the reason I needed a whole bunch of these is because every single one of these rows, every single one has a different pattern number. Okay, so as I'm knitting, and this is why it's taken me a while to pick this back up again. But here's an example of a knitting pattern chart for this particular project. There's my increases. So every stitch pattern, whether it's this diamond and bobble, or the cables, or this kind of popcorn stitch center panel, every single one of these has a different set of repeats. So there's 14 repeats for the diamond, there's 6 repeats for this, and then there's, I think, 4 repeats for this. So you have to keep track of each one separately, which, as you can imagine, means you have to really focus. So I need one of these. So I'm on row 126. And so that means that I'm going to be on, for this particular pattern, I'm going to be on pattern repeat number 14. For this one, for 126, I'm going to be on row 6. That's my marker says I'm on 126. All right, now for the center one, I'm going to be on row 2. Well, now you may be looking at this thinking, well, then what do you need all the extras for? Well, I may actually go ahead and put these on there. So that would be another one on 6. And another one on 14, just to have it handy. Oops, that'd be a 1 and a 4. Okay, so I think you get the idea. So for every single row, we would go ahead and have my marker. And I'm super excited about this because one time knitting on an airplane, I did goof up a row and I had to frog it. That means I had to rip it out, get it, rip it, frogging. So I had to frog it out back several rows, and that was super painful. So I'm really looking forward to using my universal knitting hands because, as you can see, you can use them as just a stitch counter, right? Because they don't take up any space on your cord. So unlike the ones that you have to slide onto a needle, they take up 0 space. So this is it's my row counter. This is a 12 row pattern, and I just have it in my head. So I only need one for this particular project, but I know when I have to do my cabling and how. But here on my counter C, I just know which one it is, and I just use it for a stitch marker. And speaking of stitch markers, so actually I'm going to get my little errand project out of the way here. I look forward to finishing one of these days. So speaking of stitch markers, there are also so many awesome stitch markers. And stitch markers you need, so in this particular project, there's 12 stitches. basically in each pattern. So sometimes I cable starting with the first 6 and then cross them over the next 6. But basically each section of 12 is part of the pattern, one way or the other. And so I have my stitch markers in every 12 stitches just to help make sure that I don't get off, because my counting isn't always the best, right? I am very, very human. So anyhow, wonderfully, Clover makes a lot of really great types of stitch counters. Now this stitch counter comes in a little kit. So this is a little box that you can buy from Clover that has all different sizes of stitch markers in a whole range of colors. Some are really small and some are, of course, very large. But I love this little case because it keeps them all really organized and they fit in my little knitting bag very well. I will say now Clover, of course, does make traditional stitch markers that are shaped like a little triangle or shaped just like a circle. I happen to like this style with the kind of I think of it like a safety pin style opening, because I have this, I'm always worried that somehow I'm going to knit my stitch marker into my project. And maybe this isn't a problem for everybody, but for me, it gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that I can simply open up this stitch marker and take it off. Now, sometimes we use stitch markers for also to keep track of our rows. Now, in this case, I just keep comparing this cowl to my head to see if it's big enough. But, you know, with a sweater project, like my little Erin project, I wish that I had had these for that project. So these are a new type of stitch marker. And oh, here's a package of them so you can see the package. So let me put that up on the screen here. So these are locking stitch markers, but they have a clip. So as it says, see, you can attach notes to stitches. So not only are they come in a pack of 6. So not only do they have the awesome, you know, safety feature of being able to lock it and unlock it, but you also have the ability to add in, see, there's a little clip on here. So as you're stitching, so the way you use this, and like I said, I wish I'd had it for my Erin when I began it, but now I can going forward. I'll have to put 126 on there. But when you're doing a larger project like a sweater, it's really handy to put in a marker every so many rows to help, just as a little bit of extra insurance to help you remember. Or maybe you're going to mark that you increased there. You know, maybe you deviated from the pattern and you just want to put a little note on there. So these are really awesome. So, and it even comes with, inside this package, there's a little tiny notepad included. I've probably already lost mine. I'm not sure, it's in my bag somewhere. But anyhow, these are really slick. So even if you have already have some stitch markers, you might really enjoy these. So something to consider for your toolbox. Again, I would consider this kind of just a good basic starter. Or, you know, you can never have too many stitch markers, right? But these are a really cool feature, especially for those of you who really enjoy doing sweaters and things where you need to keep track of your rows accurately. Okay, those are really great. Speaking of keeping track of rows accurately, you might have noticed, well, actually I was using a different marker, but this is another really great tool. And these are Clover's wonderful stitch marking guides, or pattern chart marker set. Sorry, I knew I was going to use the wrong language. But this is the pattern chart marker set. And it really helps you keep your place on patterns. So here is my pattern chart marker. Now I'm using the bit large one on this particular one because I happen to have it set for printed out in portrait, or excuse me, landscape style. Landscape. And so when it's on landscape, then you want the larger one because it'll go across your paper. So here is, for that little Erin sweater, here is my particular pattern that I'm using. So here's row 126. So there we go, 14, 6, and 2. And on this one, I actually wrote out what I'm going to be doing on each particular row. But this is magnetized. So you see, here's the back side. It's magnetized, so it's super, super strong. Like this sucker, it's not going to come off my paper, okay? I can pick the whole thing up and and flop it around as much as I want, and it really stays put. They're awesome. And not only can you use them, of course, obviously for your pattern chart markers and things, but you can use them also just for bookmarks. So again, they have magnetic strips inside them, and they just magnetize right onto whatever you're working with. And so again, this is the pattern chart marker set. They really are awfully fabulous. And just such a lifesaver because they just don't get lost. And you always think, oh, I'll remember, but some of us don't. And as you can tell, I'm one of those people that believes in backup. So I now have a nice pattern chart marker to keep track of where I am on a piece of paper, as well as all my awesome universal chart markers. So hooray for that. Hooray, hooray. All right. Another great tool, so going back to my current little Cal project, other tools that knitters can always use is this is a cable needle. All right, so there's two types of cable needles. This is the type I use. One is kind of like has just a little bit of a shape in the center of it. And those are great, but this is the kind I use, so I don't actually have the other kind in my toolbox right now. But of course, Clover makes both kinds, no matter what your favorite is, Clover makes them. But these are my favorites because you can go ahead and, let's just go ahead and slide this on. So let's say I was going to do my next cable pattern. So I can pick these off, and they come in, I think, a couple different sizes. And I would grab my 3 stitches. Not 3 stitches, excuse me, 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3. No, that's split, that's 1. So 1 more. So these are pretty big cables. And actually, if I was going to be doing the next cable set, it would go to the back, but we'll just pull it to the front so you can see what I'm doing. But I really like with the U-shaped ones, I like how my stitches stay on there. I just feel that this style is a little more secure for yours truly. If I was really paranoid, I could actually use a needle point protector on one end to help even lock them in better. This happens to be a double point protector, but they do make single point protectors. So if you're really, really nervous about losing those cable stitches while you're doing your other part of the cable, you can even put stitch protectors on there. But anyhow, that's my favorite part. And I think a cable needle is something that everyone can always use some, because it's one of those things that, for some reason, suddenly I can find 2 of them. Sometimes I can only find none of them. So I like to have extras of some of my knitting tools because, number one, like a lot of knitters, I'll often have more than one project going. So I need a set of tools, ideally for each one, because they might be in different knitting bags. But also, I just am one of those people who tends to misplace things. So it's good to have. So I mentioned real quick, I mentioned the point protectors. Now these, again, are double-ended. They come in a lot of different sizes. And I couldn't find my packaging for these, but just depending on what size needle you're using, it's just a nice way to secure those needles, keep them from flopping around, keep them from pointing, sticking you when you're putting your hand in your knitting bag. Great for travel. And again, they come in a variety of sizes. So each color is a different size. So from fairly small, the green is the smallest, on up to, I think the red might be the largest, but it's hard to tell. Anyhow, needle point protectors, another great tool. But yet another tool that you might want to be aware of that I've had to use a few times on this particular project, these are the bamboo repair hooks. And so bamboo repair hooks, these come in a set of 2. As you can see, one is a little bit smaller than the other. So just depending on what size of, what your gauge, your tension is for your knitting, which one's going to fit the best. So the repair hook is very much like a, oh, what do I want to say? Um, it's like a crochet hook. There we go. There's the word I'm looking for. It's like a crochet hook. And it's like a crochet hook, but it has a pointy end on it. So, and it actually takes up a little less space than most crochet hooks in your your bag. I was just checking my camera here for a sec. My color's a little off, but we'll work with it. So rather than you have a crochet hook, this tool allows you have a sharp end to help pick those stitches up. And then of course you have your crochet style hook to help repair those accidental drops. Again, I'm a very human person, so dropping stitches is something I occasionally do. And so I get out my beautiful bamboo repair hooks. And so again, they're really nice to have. And they come in a couple sizes, or that I should say the package has two sizes in the package. So it's very, very convenient. So that's the bamboo repair hooks. These have actually been riding around inside my ball of yarn because that's just the most convenient place to carry it for my project. Now, when I get down to the end, or a little close to the end, again, this is what's called a provisional cast on. So there's actually a line of live yarn in here. So one of the things I need to do with this is I can just leave it tied onto this yarn, but what I could use also is, this is called a double pointed stitch holder. And again, these come in 3 sizes. The double pointed stitch holders, or double-ended, excuse me, double-ended stitch holders. And they come in different sizes. So this is the medium, the green. We have the small. And as you can see, the medium and small are the same size in terms of length. Now, this is the large, which is what I'd probably go ahead and use on my project. With the large, it's the same size in diameter as the medium. So these work by these. This is a stretchy band. And actually, what's kind of cool is on the large one, on the large size, they attach, so you can just clip it on there. But this diameter of this double pointed needle is the same as the medium. So the same diameter of needle, but it just happens to be a longer needle. So the large is just longer. But what's really great about this is it is basically a double pointed needle, but with a holder on each end. So what this lets you do is, let's say I want to transfer these stitches, and where you use this a lot is for things like, when you're doing shoulders for your sweater, so you're getting up into the neckline area, you need to go ahead and sometimes you want to go ahead and cast those off, bind those off, or else you may want to just pick up the live stitches. If you're going to graft them, rather than sew it as a seam, sometimes you want to graft something, and that's, in this case, this cowl is going to get grafted. So that's why there's live stitches here. And so the double pointed needle is for, so I should have put these on here sooner because they're kind of getting beat up, sliding around on that live yarn. But so these stitches will get grafted onto the other side of the cowl, and having this will allow me to easily, the beauty of being the double pointed needles is that, oops, I missed a few stitches here. There we go. But because it's a double pointed needle, the nice thing is that you can work off of either end. So when you go to transfer these, take that off the end, oops, and put that onto the other end. I didn't wiggle very gracefully. Like I said, I'm a very human person. So be careful when you're transferring. But anyhow, so I can take my holder, and when I go to move those stitches back, again, they can go on either end. So I can work from this end or this end when I'm grafting. And that's just really nice to be able to do that. But there's our double-ended stitch holders, and those are pretty sweet to have too. And again, they come in 3 sizes, just depending on what your needs are. A handy, handy tool. So I'm getting down to the end of some of these are some of the, I mean, Clover makes so many tools for every kind of sewing, crafting, you name it. So the chances are there's something you need or want, right? I'm just kind of trying to hit the highlights. Like these are the things that I consider to be really essential in my toolbox. And one thing I haven't mentioned is this is an awesome combination needle gauge. So this has the needle sizes for both crochet and knitting around the side, Japanese and American sizes, and of course this all can fit in like this. But it also has a stitch gauge. So when you're doing your swatching, oftentimes with the swatch, you knit a sample that's 4x4. Again, if you haven't knitted yet, you need to learn how to do something called swatching. And usually with swatching, we have a 4x4 inch window of stitches that we count. And you count the number of rows and the number of courses. So both the number of stitches basically going this way and then the number of rows going this way. And that gives you an idea how large your project is going to be based on stitch count. And you have to check this for accuracy because with scarves and cowls, it's not quite so picky. But if it's a sweater, you know, that can make a big difference on terms of what size it's going to be when all is said and done. So you have to do swatches for accuracy. So anyhow, so this allows you not only to quickly and accurately check your needle sizes. So this is for knitting. So this is US knitting sizes, this is Japanese knitting sizes, and this is crochet needles. So, or crochet hooks, excuse me, crochet hooks. And so similarly, you have both millimeters and letter designations for your crochet hooks. So it's just a really great tool to have, easy again to throw into your knitting bag to keep it all together. Alrighty. So that's kind of my little tour of some of my absolute favorite tools for knitting. Now, another thing actually that I had grabbed is some of our knitters actually do also, they like to, or one of my knitting mentors likes to actually sew her sweater seams together with a machine rather than sew it by hand. And one of her favorite things to use for that is Clover Wonder Clips. So rather than try to pin, Wonder Clips are great for clipping bulky knits together for if you're doing them by machine, because some knitters do. They sew their seams by machine. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our fabulous Clover Wonder Clips. So I hope that will give you some ideas about what you might be able to grab for that knitter in your life, or even if that's yourself, for a stocking stuffer, or just you want to show them that you support their artistry with their beautiful knitting. But again, I just wanted to give a shout out to my favorite new knitting needles, the Takumi Pro, and again with the fabulous, fabulous swivels. I never get tired of playing with these. It's just such a great advancement in circular needles to have a swivel. It's such a little thing, but I love them. So I hope this was educational for you, and maybe I entertained you with some of my live challenges today. But anyhow, I just want to wish all of you a very happy holiday season, and hope that the coming year is a very blessed one for you. And so I'm Katrina Walker on behalf of Tool School. Just again want to thank you for watching and wish you a happy holiday season.